Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is, and welcome back. I hope your Thursday is outstanding and you're accomplishing all the things you've set your mind to, because that means we're coming back tomorrow with a nice and easy keeled Friday, but we're not there yet. We've got business to attend to today, my friends. Very glad that you're here and with us. We were a little bit later today. I had an event today, and I got to hang out with Stephen Gardner. Shout out today. So we were a little bit late today. We'll be back on the regular schedule tomorrow. I know it was a little dynamic there, but we'll be back tomorrow. Regular schedule, Membos, 12 noon Eastern, and live show 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So that's going to be happening tomorrow. Housekeeping items there. But today, bunch of business to attend to. 3 updates. We're talking about the American Oversight lawsuit, and I'm getting some information organized here a little bit differently. But American Oversight, this is the logo, and so we're going to talk about this organization, of course. Melanie Sloan helped to advise it. So did Heather Sawyer. And we're going to go through what their lawsuit looks like, because they are suing over Signalgate. And remember that this has been something that's been siphoning out air and oxygen out of everything for this entire week, even though it's much ado about nothing. But the judge had a hearing today and called everybody in there, and we'll go through it. Margot Cleveland was listening in. Very short hearing. The judge did issue an order, and Trump's team is fighting back on this. Okay, so today we got our hands on their new filing. That is their memo in opposition to American Oversight's lawsuit. American Oversight, of course, is Melanie Sloan's, and she was a partner with Norm Eisen. We'll come back to that. So they sued Hegseth. Now Trump's DOJ is responding in opposition to them. Then we have the hearing that happened. So we'll get up to speed on all of that today. That's in Judge Boasberg's case. Now, Judge Boasberg's courtroom, is also hearing the Tren de Aragua gangbanger case. And that also got a response today from Trump's DOJ. Remember that earlier this week, we talked about Boasberg. He came out and said that you have to come down to the principal's office. You're in trouble there, DOJ, and issued an order to show cause, which is really what that is. Trump responded, the DOJ, and said, you're wrong, Judge, and walked this judge through, he's a little dense, on how this works, and explained very paint-by-numbers formatty how they're right and the judge is wrong. And it's pretty funny in here in some places, like this one. If any doubt remains, and none does, then the court should just do what the court should do, right? So we'll come back to that. Some good filings there from the DOJ. A lot of reaction. Caroline Leavitt. We've got Tom Homan. We got Marco Rubio out, and others in that segment. Then we're talking about Tesla, because the Tesla terrorist has been arrested. And we got a press briefing that we'll go through today, just a little bit, hit the highlights on what happened from Las Vegas, see what some of those charges look like. And woo boy, there's a lot of them there. So we'll see what is happening in Las Vegas, go through that story. And then Elon is giving a big interview today with the Doge fellas. And so we got a couple of clips on that lined up. But it is a beautiful day, my friends. I hope that your week is unfolding rapidly, beautifully well. All to-do list items are getting checked off. Email inbox looking empty, and the stack of mail is being either processed or shredded. Sometimes it's the same thing. But we had a great members only stream this morning. And if you're looking for a way to connect with other people in our community and grab some extra content and support the work that we do here, consider becoming a member. We do streams in the morning. We have a great members only community. We deliver for our members as much as we can. We stream on Saturdays. We stream multiple days throughout the week. So come check it out. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com or join on YouTube. And we'll see you tomorrow. Members only stream 12 noon Eastern to celebrate Friday. So, all right, now let's get to it, because we got other business here to attend to. Starting with this organization called American Oversight. President Trump and the DOJ are fighting back against American Oversight. We're familiar with this organization, what we would call a partisan organization. They claim to be nonprofit, nonpartisan, and blah, blah, blah. But we really know who they are and where they came from. We'll come back to that. But they are asking for an order against the Trump administration related to Signalgate. And they're saying that you better, Judge, order them to preserve this and preserve the other thing and more. Now, Trump's DOJ has responded, and they came out and they said, no. We filed this in opposition to your TRO. Boasberg, the judge who conveniently got this case, the chief judge there who's already gotten the Tren de Aragua deportation case, he's now gotten this case. And so he held a hearing today that we'll talk about in a moment. But for background here, who again brought this lawsuit? Oh, yeah, it's this organization called American Oversight. And I've cobbled up some links together here, but you can see this was founded by, or at least in part created by, Melanie Sloan. And she was a woman, as you see here on the screen, who worked or currently works for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Former counsel, former executive director for Crew. And who co-founded Crew with her? That's right, Norm Eisen did, as we remember. So Norm Eisen has his fingerprints over all this garbage. Now, the executive director currently there is Director Heather Sawyer, Ultra Blue organization, and they have been suing Trump. In fact, they were basically created to go after Trump, according to this article from USA Today, written back in 2017. So not nonprofit, not nonpartisan, they're partisan hacks. So Legal Watchdog launches to hound Trump's agencies. And this was way back then, said, here's what we're doing. We're troubled to see what's happening here. So we're going to use tools available to us, and numerous watchdogs are popping up. According to Evers and Melanie Sloan, senior advisor to the group, they're going to delve well below the cabinet level and go into different appointees and just go attack Trump. Okay, so we know who they are. So forget about this idea that they're nonpartisan or care about oversight at all. They're just Democrat hacks. And they want Trump and everybody here, Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, Bessent, Rubio, and others. This is their proposed order. They're saying, Judge, can you please do this? They say, you shall initiate about the Signal chat, order them to assist the acting archivist, right? And remember how many problems we had with the archivist and Nara and Deborah Stidel Wall. Remember her? Big pain in our butts with all the classified document stuff, right? All of that led to the prosecution in Florida. So they're again saying, okay, bring in the acting archivist, which has now changed hands and so on and so forth, but it's a records situation, right? So the Norm Eisen, Melanie Sloan entourage is creating another records case, is essentially what's happening. So they asked the judge to sign off on this. Now, Trump and the DOJ have responded. And here's what they said. No. How about no? This case, of course, coming out of the District of Columbia, assigned very conveniently to Judge James E. Boasberg. And Trump writes the following on behalf of Pete Hegseth, who has really been the target of a lot of this. They want to take out Hegseth, whether it's with alcoholism, whether it's with womanizing, whether it's signal textuizing, whatever. They just can't let it go. So they're responding saying, no, we're not going to let Norm Eisen's little related group with Melanie come in here and interfere. They say, look, James Boasberg, judge, this court should deny the motion for a TRO. Their claim that Trump have failed to take measures to prevent the destruction of signal messages is not reviewable. You can't look into this because it's within the president's operations. And we were waiting for this, some sort of executive privilege claim. Now, moreover, a TRO is unwarranted here because the agencies from the Trump administration are already taking steps to locate and preserve the signal chat that's at issue here. And at least one agency has already located, preserved, and copied into federal record-keeping system a partial version of the chat. Well, that's going to be maybe a little problem there. Partial version. Well, where's the full thing? Impeach him. So Trump writes, the Federal Records Act, Judge Boasberg, governs the creation, the management, and the disposal of federal records. And so in order to ensure accurate and complete documentation of federal government businesses, we need to follow the rules. Now, the FRA requires agencies to create and preserve records that document the organizations, function, policies, decisions, and a bunch of other things. And the archivist has ultimate authority to determine what to make and do with those records. Now, pursuant to the FRA, records are also defined to include these things: organizations, policies, and more. Now, the FRA is also based on a system of administrative enforcement. Under this system, the agency head and the archivist may proceed first by invoking the agency's safeguards. If those safeguards are unsuccessful, then there can be an action. And while the statute requires the agency to notify the archivist of deletion, it only requires the agency to seek the assistance of the AG if they've been unlawfully removed from the agency. Right now, they're claiming you can't basically use Signal because it doesn't preserve things. And in the Signal chat, it auto-deleted the messages. So they're asking themselves how to undo that or prevent them from doing that. You have to archive these things. And they're just essentially saying, no, we don't. Because Congress decided to rely on administrative enforcement rather than judicial enforcement. In other words, we mind our own business in our branch. We don't go out to the judiciary to rectify these things. The FRA precludes judicial review. Judge, you can't look into this by statute. Instead, under the APA, a private party may challenge the sufficiency of an agency's record-keeping guidelines or directives. So you can't sue to get the specific records, but you can sue to say their policies are out of alignment with the law. Or if they want to sue, they can make another claim saying the agency's head or the archivist's failure to seek initiation of an enforcement is what they should do. And then the archivist can go enforce it, right? If the person who has the claim for missing document records are the archivist, somebody can go and file a claim against the archivist to force the archivist to preserve the records, to archive the records and initiate an action. But that's not what they're doing here. They're suing Hegseth. And if they, let's say, for example, Hegseth issues a new memo that says, we're just going to chat on Signal and auto-delete everything, then they could sue that. They could sue and stop the execution of that new impending order. But they couldn't sue to preserve specific records. Okay, that's the archivist's job. And we don't allow private litigants to just go file to sue to make these records be preserved, is the argument. So here's the background. They say, first of all, Norm Eisen and Melanie Sloan, through American Oversight, says that they filed its complaint saying the day before that The Atlantic published a story about senior administration officials and the use of Signal messaging to discuss and coordinate the strikes in Yemen. The complaint from Norm and Melanie also alleges that Signal messages are stored only on an individual's device with no copy or backup messages retained on the servers. So like once they're gone, they're gone. And that Signal has a function that allows users to set time limits. Messages are auto-deleted. Plaintiffs, Norm and Melanie, claim that according to the Atlantic article, at least one participation in the Signal chat enabled that function. So the messages were going to get afuera. Thus, plaintiff alleges, upon information and belief, so the oversight group, that one or more messages in the Signal chat have been deleted. They say, again, Trump's writing this. They say that the defendants in their capacities have not taken steps to preserve any of these things. But this organization, American Oversight, from Melanie and Norm, a frequent submitter of FOIA requests, brings claims against Trump under the APA for violating their obligations under the Federal Records Act. In fact, they filed for a TRO. They seek an order now requiring Trump to take steps to ensure preservation of any federal records that were created between these two dates, regarding and including any messages and more. Now, they further say, this is from Trump, that the court orders defendants to seek an action through the AG to force the recovery of those records. Okay, so don't go through the archivist, go through the Pam Bondi, and to confirm that they're working within the rules. Lastly, they want Trump to file within 2 days a status report of compliance. So Trump's framing this all. Now, they say, look, here's the argument. American Oversight claims in its motion that Trump have failed and the administration have failed to comply with their obligations under the law, saying they haven't done what they need to prevent the destruction of the chat. But they can't win on that claim. First of all, it's meritless. And it's factually unsound. We did try to save everything. Saying the FRA requires heads of agencies to make and preserve records. But even where a government officer has violated the FRA, like even when there's a clear problem under the U.S. Code, Congress has explained that Congress has not vested federal courts with jurisdiction to adjudicate that question upon suit by a private party. Because they don't want a billion Normisans just suing the government every day. That responsibility is vested in the administrative authorities. That's from a 1980 case. The Supreme Court also held in that case that the FRA does not create any private enforceable rights, given that the statute was intended not to benefit private parties, but solely to benefit the agencies themselves and the federal government as a whole to make sure the records are sound. So applying that teaching, the Court of Appeals assessed 3 types of actions. If you're going to sue under the FRA, Norm and Melanie, agency employees, you can sue if they're destroying records. Okay, that's not happening here. The agency's failure to employ adequate record-keeping guidelines, destroying records in contravention to the record-keeping guidelines and directives, like that's not happening. They're not breaking the rules or anything. They're saying these are the rules. We're allowed to have these conversations. And the agency's failure to employ adequate record-keeping guidelines, which I think they're saying we're in compliance of. We'll continue. I'll stop interrupting. The agency's heads or archivists and the refusal to seek an enforcement action. Now, agency actions of the first type are not reviewable, whereas the Court of Appeals in the DC Circuit back in 1991 said, if you're going to sue under this statute, there are 3 ways you can do it. And the first one, if you sue under that claim, the courts can't interfere with that. Whereas the second 2, you may proceed under the APA. So hence, courts may not entertain private lawsuits alleging that agencies have improperly destroyed or removed records, but they may consider ones challenging whether agency guidelines that permit destruction of those records are adequate under the law, or if the archivist didn't go seek an enforcement action by the AG. So courts thus recognize that while the FRA does contain several specific requirements, it leaves the details up to the agency heads. So Trump lays that out for us. There's a couple ways this can work. Here, Norm and American Oversight, they claim that it bases its motion on the claim that it's bringing to us is clearly the first type, falls into that first category. And judge, you can't review it. Now, we claim, plaintiff claims, the American Oversight, that Trump have failed to take measures to prevent the destruction of the messages. They say that agency employees are destroying records and blah, blah, blah. That is the first of the type of the claims. And critically, that's the one that's not reviewable under that precedent. Seen here, right? Court of Appeals, 1991, Armstrong versus Bush. Agency employees destroying records? No, can't review it. Even if the claim were reviewable, it is belied by Trump's declaration submitted herewith, which we'll read next. That declaration establishes that Trump and the administration are taking steps to locate and preserve the chat, and that at least one of the agencies has located, preserved, and copied into federal record keeping a partial version of the signal chat. All right. We even have a declaration here. His name is Christopher Pilkerton. Then we'll read. To the extent that their TRO from Norm and Melanie seeks broader relief, such as ordering Trump to initiate a recovery action and do all of this stuff, that relief asks for the ultimate relief sought in the lawsuit and is way too premature for the TRO stage. So they cannot establish irreparable harm anyways, because agencies are currently taking steps to find the messages. As noted, at least one agency has already gotten a portion of it, a partial version of the chat. And so for all intents and purposes, by the way, The Atlantic published it anyways. And they're not even saying that what was published in The Atlantic is incomplete or inaccurate. So you got it. It's in the magazine that no one reads. Did you guys try to read it? You don't want to subscribe to it? We don't blame you. So the balance of equity, even Norm's like, ugh. But it's behind a paywall, Judge, and I don't want to. Plaintiff's failure to succeed is also seen in 2 other measures. They haven't established any likelihood of success on the merits of this. There's no irreparable harm, and they're not going to win a TRO. So the motion should be denied, says Trump's administration. But in the event the court decides to issue relief, it's also well settled that injunctive relief must be narrowly tailored to very specific harm shown and not be more burdensome than is necessary. Here, Melanie in oversight, they're seeking broad injunctive relief concerning the general preservation of messaging. And you should just limit to the signal chat, right? It shouldn't be way broader to any electronic messaging across all of the government, like a nationwide order. Think about it. And finally, the court should order security for any preliminary injunction. Oh, good. An injunction bond. Boasberg would be like, okay, $5, put it up. Under Rule 65C, the court may issue a preliminary injunction only if the movement gives a security. In the event the court issues an injunction here, post an appropriate bond commensurate with the scope of the injunction. Last one we saw like this from the judge, you know how much he made him post up? $100. It doesn't even cover the cost of the filings or the paperwork. So here signed by Amber Richer, trial attorney, U.S. DOJ, coming out of Washington, D.C. Shout out to Amber Richer for the nice filing on behalf of the Trump administration. Now, you also see, this is the declaration that was submitted by Christopher Pilkerton, and he says, I'm the acting general counsel for the DOT, Department of Treasury, and I served in this role for a little while. It's February 27th, 1 month, 2025. And then I became acting general counsel, served as assistant to the Treasury and more. I'm familiar with these claims against Scott Bessent, sued by Treasury because he was in that chat. Based on personal knowledge, I provide this declaration saying on March 26, I sent separate but identical memoranda to Secretary Scott Bessent and Treasury Chief of Staff called Daniel Katz, instructing them to take any necessary steps to preserve all existing communications they received or got related to the conduct of Treasury everywhere, but even not including, but not limited to just Signal. I further instructed them that their obligation to preserve records also extends to messages created in the future and more. And so we got messages on March 27th. Images were taken from both the phones of Secretary Bessent and Mr. Katz of all existing messages, emailed both as well. The existing messages of all chats began with Michael Waltz at 1:48 p.m. on March 15th. These messages are now preserved in the email accounts of both Secretary Bessent and Mr. Katz, which of course are going to both be part of the record keeping officially. So there they are. They just lobbed them into the official filing, essentially, which is the email. Now, we also had a declaration of this guy, Gerald J. Zykowicz. Zykowicz in the house. What's up, Gerald Zykowicz? Says, I'm an associate deputy attorney general counsel over here. I make this declaration in opposition to their motion from Norm and Melanie for a TRO. Says the DOD of the general counsel has contacted the Secretary of Defense's communication staff and requested a copy of the Signal messages to be forwarded to an official account. And we're in the process of issuing a litigation hold to comply with the department's preservation obligations. I declare this is true under penalty of perjury. Signed there by Zykowicz. Gerald in the house. So all of that got submitted. We had a hearing that took place today. Our friend Margot Cleveland was reporting on this. Refresh at the top of our timeline so you can give her a follow. And here's what she reported happened. Judge comes in. All rise. Please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Judge Boasberg. Cases oversight, Norm and Melanie versus Hegseth and Trump. First of all, the judge says, there have been some questions raised about me, says Judge Boasberg, getting this case by random assignment. He addressed it at the hearing. Let me explain how random assignment works here, okay? Lest there be any doubt with you conspiracy theorists out there, Rob. Because he's just saying, he's basically saying, I was randomly assigned this case. I was there, there's like a little spin wheel, we spun it, and I was like, oh, weird. Oh, no, don't end up on me again. Meanwhile, Judge Mercan is there, along with Areola Engeron, rubbing his nips. His nips are just hitting the pin thing, just trying to slow it down, and it stops right on Boasberg. It's a collusion. Whatever happened, who knows? But he got the case. And it is very convenient, by the way. Okay, so this judge was, if you look him up on Wikipedia even, it'll tell you, this judge was the former judge of FISA, was the former judge of terrorist removal courts, both of those two courts. And you're telling me that the FISA judge gets the state secret case, okay, and the signal case, and that the terrorist removal judge gets the Tren de Aragua case. Okay, two cases, he got two, right? But I kind of said three things there. But the Tren de Aragua case and the signal state secrets case as well. Come on. Give me a break. So, okay, Judge, I'm sure it's random. Thanks for having to explain yourself. Me think the lady doth protest too much. Says here, Margot says, the judge is now explaining what this case is about. He says, it's not about disclosure. It's not about seeking penalties. This is a suit under the APA for enforcement of the FRA, namely to force the archivists to ask the Attorney General to get the records. Here, now I see a way to reach common ground, says this judge. So we're just going to have this we're going to settle it. What I see is the government moving towards what the plaintiff seeks here. They're actually preserving some things, and that's what you guys want. So government, what is the DOJ willing to preserve, Trump? They say, well, Your Honor, the DOJ is still working to determine what records they have to preserve. Some of it might have been deleted, but we are assuming we must maintain signal for purposes of the case. The judge says, well, will the government accept an order to preserve chats for that? Yes, Your Honor. I mean, we are working to preserve records that we have. If we have it, we're working to preserve it. We're still in the process of seeing what we have. Well, we don't think an order is necessary from you to do it, but we're doing it anyways. Okay, but if you're doing it anyways, then an order isn't prejudicing the agency. So it's not going to be a problem for you to comply. And says, don't worry, this is going to be in writing, by the way. Margot says, ha, because that's a little dig. Because in the Tren de Aragua case, which is what this judge has in his other manila file folder, this is my terrorist love case. He's like, I love this. I sleep with this under my pillow. It's such a beautiful thing. I love terrorist Tren de Aragua gangbangers. Takes it home. But has that to worry about. And in that case, remember, one of the key issues was whether or not the judge's verbal order mattered or whether the judge's written order mattered. And so he said, don't worry, this is going to be in writing. Okay, so you'll follow it. So it's funny. What I'm going to do is enjoin the government to preserve all signal communications between 3:11 and 3:15. Then we'll go from here, right? So it's almost like it's not essentially backwards looking, like there wasn't an order from this court to preserve something and then it was deleted, right? It's like you just preserve the records you have. Like, fine, we're doing that anyways. All right. So it's kind of quiet for now. Now, here's what the official order says. Very quick hearing. Says, here's the minute order. As agreed to by the parties today, so it wasn't a big battle, the court orders that Trump shall promptly make best efforts to preserve all signal communications from the 11th to the 15th. By March 31st, Trump shall file a status report with declarations setting forth the steps that they have taken to implement such preservation. And this order shall expire on April 10th. In the event that there is a satisfactory production or confirmation that they're being saved, so ordered by Judge James E. Boasberg on March 27th. Of course, that is the date of this recording. So that happened there, and we're going to keep our eye on it to see what comes back. Now, there's questions about Hegseth. For some reason, everybody's on Hegseth's back. And Joni Ernst, who is a little bit of a tough get on this one, did come out and say she continues to support him. Let me plug in this audio so we can actually hear it. Hello.
Senator Hegseth done with this signal chat. Do you have confidence in him as defense secretary still?
I do, and this is a call that the president will make, but I know that the NSC is going to scrutinize this, and then they'll get back to us and let us know.
What about the strikes he was talking about in the signal chat?
Well, again, I still have confidence in the secretary. I think they've learned a valuable lesson with this, But we'll get feedback from the NSC, very important, and then of course the chair and ranking member of Armed Services have asked for an independent report. So that's it for them. Until then, thanks. Thank you.
All right, so going to continue to look into it, and this is where I think we start to get squirrely, right? I don't trust this judge offering a compromise and saying that this whole thing can just be settled as long as Trump provides the records or provides confirmation that there is a best efforts preservation attempt that was made. I don't think we're done with this one yet. I feel like we're walking into a bit of a trap here if we're not keeping our wits about us, because they're looking for some way to skewer Trump, right? That's what all of this is about. And the original case where Boasberg started with the Tren de Aragua gangbanger deportation situation has been in the same pattern and mold, trying to catch Trump in violation of one of his orders, trying to catch the airplane not turning around in midair after he said, turn it around. Same thing happening here, right? Trying to help the Democrats, saying, well, you said that you didn't say that thing. Boasberg's right now just, well, preserve everything. Give me a copy of it so that I can be presenting these materials back over to the Democrats to ensnare the folks in it. So you're going to see a lot of this compromise stuff out there. The judge ordered a compromise, and this whole thing just make sure. No. This has all the hallmarks of a Norm Eisen CIA-related type operation. All the hallmarks of it. And actually, accurately that time. Not like, even though we're making a pun at the CIA morons, it is actually legitimate, because the last time they tried to take out Trump, who was the origin source of all of this? The archivist. Remember that? And it just goes back and around and around and around we go. So document crimes, process crimes, they're just waiting for it. We're going to keep our eye on this one. We know we've got no trust of Boasberg. Thanks for joining and subscribing as we do. Now, we're going to stick with the Boasberg courtroom, because we also had this filing from President Trump. The Trump DOJ responds to Judge Boasberg, a very concerning judge out of the District of Columbia, and they came with the fury and the fire on this one, pointing out how the judge is so wrong to the judge, which is always fun. You can see this is in the case of the JGG plaintiffs versus Donald Trump, and these are the alleged Tren de Aragua gangbangers who were set to be deported. They were housed in Texas, but the lawyers, the ACLU gangbanger lawyers, like dozens of them, all came crashing into this from all over the world, like, we love terrorists, and we're helping them. I don't know how much they charged or what they're getting paid, but must be good. But they all sued in the District of Columbia, right? And they were saying that we need you guys to stop Trump from deporting these terrorists. Now, in the air, the judge said, turn those planes around. Those planes did not get turned around. They landed. And those individuals got a fuera right into El Salvador. And then the judge said, give me information and do these things. And then when Trump didn't do those things, after an evidentiary investigation, the judge called them down to the principal's office, which is what an order to show cause is. You're in trouble. I order you to show a reason why you violated my orders, why you didn't turn the plane around. You better have a dang good reason, or else you're getting suspended, bucko, and you're not going to prom or whatever. So sanctions, contempt, impeachment, trying to bait in and instigate a constitutional crisis that is Trump violating a court order when he didn't violate a court order. He was exercising his constitutional power as the duly elected president of the country. So Trump responded to this. They said, okay, you called us down to the principal's office. Okay, fine. Here, Judge Boasberg, you got this case. You got the conveniently assigned signal case as well. Here's the response. They say, listen, Judge Boasberg, on March 20th, you directed Trump, us, to do this. You said you have to come and show cause why they did not violate the court's TRO. Why? I gave you a direct order and you're why did you? Okay, you're in trouble. By failing to return the class members, and remember, this same judge certified a class of gangbanger Tren de Aragua gangbangers. A class You see those commercials. You have mesothelioma in your lungs. Well, if you do, call this law firm. Okay, think about that, but it's like, are you a Tren de Aragua gangbanger? Do you love smuggling humans and fentanyl into America? Well, call this law firm. We'll take care of you. And a judge will certify you as a class against the federal government of America. So, certified them as a class and said, why didn't you return? By the way, these class members are not even parties to this lawsuit. They're not even plaintiffs. They're a class beyond it everywhere. Why didn't you return them? Why were they removed from the United States? This is the judge specifically, on the two earliest planes that departed on March 15th. Now, that directive, writes Trump, refers to flights carrying criminal aliens removed from the United States pursuant to Trump's proclamation, which was invoking the Alien Enemies Act about this terroristic gang. So these removals, Judge, and you can, I spent a lot of time like reading that one paragraph, but it's pretty powerful. It's the first sentence is the judge wanted to know, why didn't you turn these planes around? Well, because they were criminal aliens who were marked as terrorists. That's why. Do I need to explain it further to you? We will. These removals are both complied with the law and they safeguarded Americans against members of a foreign terrorist organization. Now, the government will continue to defend the removals before this court. And if necessary, if you're going to continue to harass us about this, on appeal, challenging this court's two injunctions issued on March 15th. The first injunction, in a written minute order, entered before a class was even provisionally certified, the class of gangbanger terrorists, enjoined the government and stopped the government from removing any of them for 14 days. Now, although that first injunction did not comply with the rules, and it did not state the reasons why it was issued under Rule 65 D1A, no one disputes that the government complied with that order, okay? And the defendants do not discuss it further. Okay, we complied. You said, don't get rid of like the 5 people who are a party of this lawsuit. And then the judge certified a class provisionally of all non-U.S. citizens in custody. One judge, all non-citizens in custody who were subject to the Tren de Aragua, every Tren de Aragua gang member across this whole country now certified as a class by a federal judge in D.C. And they said, okay. Now the first one, we kept them in the country. Okay, we didn't do anything with those people. But the second injunction, Judge, you issued via a minute order at 7:25 p.m. You said in writing, quote, the government is enjoined from removing members of the class not otherwise subject to such removal, pursuant to the proclamation for 14 days or until further order. Now that minute order again, did not comply with the rules, Judge. You have to state the reasons why. Rule 65 D1A, read the rules. Regardless, the injunction thus bars the government from removing class members. It does not require the government to undo removals. See that? So the people in the air were already removed. It had already occurred. And for good reason too, Judge. Even without the challenged proclamation, the president doubtlessly acts within his constitutional prerogative by declining to transport foreign terrorists into the country. Once they're in the air and out of the country, the president is not going to give an order to bring them back in. They're out. They're not going to get an order to come back. So that's just not going to happen. Here, any members of the so-called class aboard the flights had already left the United States when your minute order was entered and thus had already been removed. It had been done. No court has the power to compel the president to return them, and there is no sound basis to read the court's minute order to require that unprecedented step of taking terrorists once removed and bringing him back. And so the government fully complied with your terms, Judge, and everything you ordered at 7:25. That order purported to enjoin the government from removing class members under the Alien Enemies Act. But guess what? The government did not remove any class members after that time under the act. To be sure, the government had already removed some before the injunction. Some good lawyer wordsmithing here. These arguments always remind me of when my brother would stand in my door and put his hand in the doorway and just kind of annoy me. And I'd say, get out of my room. And he'd say, I'm not in your room. I say, your arm is. He's like, but I'm not. And he'd just stand there being obnoxious to me. I'm like, I'm trying to study or something. I'm not in your room. Get out of my room. I'm not in your room. Ugh. It's perfect. He was right. I was wrong. But nothing in the minute order suggested that the government had to return already removed class members to the United States. An injunction must be read in the context of its circumstances here. Here, the plaintiffs challenged the president's exercise to remove these people, but the president can. Aliens Enemies Act says he can. Neither the injunction on which the injunction is based or anything else controls this. Now, when the Alien Enemies Act was enacted, the ordinary meaning of the word remove, Judge, just so you're aware, was to take or to put away or to place at a distance. Look at the dictionary for once. Look at this 1785 6th edition dictionary. And do you know how cool it would be to get a copy of that, like the original OG version? Samuel Johnson, Dictionary of the English Language. To put from its place, to take or to put away. That's what remove means. To place at a distance. And in 1795, the same thing. To put from its place, to place at a distance. 1790, same thing. Hadn't changed. Then you go to 2011. To move from a place or position occupied. American Heritage. Webster's. To move something from where it is. To lift, to push it. Black's Law. To transfer or move of a person from one thing or location. Okay, Judge, it's pretty clear what it means. The plain meaning of the word remove aligns with the context of the Alien Enemies Act. You said remove. We followed the same provisions. Now, it's understandably focused on removing enemy aliens. That's it. It's not about where they go after they depart our borders, meaning removal doesn't mean you get to bring them back. It's done. And so Trump complied with the court's injunction with respect to the two flights. Here's why. According to the gangbanger lawyers and Tren de Aragua gang members, those two flights took off approximately 2 hours before the court's minute order. And they did so from a location very close to the outer limits of the U.S. airspace, right? So now we're asking ourselves exactly where they were, right? So like if this is the Texas landmass and they're right here, which is kind of looking a little bit like a chest. Okay, we're going to work on that. But if they fly out of there, and this is the water, right? Here's the water. Those are waves. And is this that's the U.S. International Waters line, right? So where are they before they land in El Salvador, which is the other landmass over here? El Salvador, right? Where are they? The judge says, okay, turn them around. Are they right here before they hit international waters? Or are they over here after they've already left international waters, right? This is why the judge wanted answers on all of that. And they said, we're not giving you answers to that. We're not telling you where they were. If it was water, okay, that's if it's water, if they're flying, let's say, over the Gulf of America. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're flying over landmass. Maybe they had to pop down somewhere in Mexico, and then they had to pick back up and go over to El Salvador over here. And they're saying, we're not going to give you information about where what our flight paths were or what interim countries we had to stop off in. Saying, as explained in the declaration, two flights carrying aliens being removed departed U.S. airspace before the court entered its order. And so accordingly, by the time the court issued its injunctions, the plane's occupants had already been transferred and removed. They're gone. The government thus did not remove any class members from the U.S. after you issued your injunction. Indeed, the government could not possibly have removed them from a place that they had already departed. Now, to be clear, the government did not order any removal flights to return to the United States. We didn't bring them back because it was done. But as noted, declining to bring class members back is not the same thing as removing them. So they were removed. And once you said stop removing them, we stopped. We didn't turn the planes around because they were already removed. As the injunction said nothing about class members who had already departed the country, there's no violation. Now, if any doubt remains, Judge, and none does, punk, the court should apply the long-standing salutary rule that favors the party subject to the injunction when that injunction's meaning is uncertain or debatable. Oh, Judge, you didn't write a good injunction. Maybe if you were more clear and concise and articulate with your language, we would know what to do. But we don't, and that's your fault. So here, the government enjoys that presumption since your injunction was so terrible, which underscores that the government complied. Now, they also identified the gangbanger lawyers, a third flight that departed later. As the government has already disclosed, that flight carried detainees who were removable on grounds other than the Tren de Aragua proclamation, which is what they're suing about, and so it is therefore irrelevant. But in any event, Trump's DOJ continues telling us the 725-minute order failed to satisfy the rules, Judge. You did not state the reasons why you issued your injunction. Now, the order does not contain any such reasoning, only directives. And so it failed to issue the requirements for any binding injunction anyways. And in suggesting a violation of this order, the gang ACLU have focused not on the written minute orders, which we respected. Okay, when it came down in writing, we abided. But they're just trying to say that there were oral arguments and oral orders that you gave during the oral arguments on March 15th. They suggest that the court's oral statements, which were made available for viewing at the courthouse or purchase only the next day, should control, not the minute entry. And they're fixating on a handful of lines in the 46-page transcript when the judge said, return them immediately, and while leaving to the government the choice of how they accomplish that. Now, their argument is that even if the planes were already outside the United States, and even though the minute order only speaks to the removal and not returning them, the government had to turn around the planes with a terrorist mid-flight, because the gangbanger ACLU lawyers love them, based on the fact that the court's hearing began at 5, right? So, they started at 5, and so it should go back to that. But this argument ignores the law. It's well settled. An oral directive is not enforceable as an injunction. Read the rules. 65D says you must state the reasons why. That's why we want it written, so it's clear in writing, so it's not all this he said, she said stuff. This principle is deeply ingrained in case law. It's got to be written before it can be enforced as an injunction. And there are powerful common sense reasons why. The written order is a more considered judgment. Oral responses from the bench may fail to convey the ultimate evaluation because judges can be wishy-washy. That was an inference to draw here, ordering the government, like they're sitting there, these DOJ attorneys are going, what? Turn around a plane filled with terrorists into America? Like, are you crazy? We had a big problem with terrorists on airplanes once, probably, that they could have prevented, right? Now, maybe, I don't know. Now, indeed, that was a very reasonable inference to draw here. You want us to bring back terrorists, Judge, so they fly into buildings? What? Ordering the government to reverse an extant counterterrorism operation and deliver foreign terrorists to U.S. soil would have been an astonishing, ultra-virus, outside-the-scope exercise of judicial power and in conflict with basic law. When the written order did not include that command to turn the airplanes around filled with terrorists, the government could reasonably have understood that the court went back and they're like, I can't put that in writing, okay? I'm not going to order them to do that. And that is true regardless of how the government counsel understood the court's intent at the time of the hearing. And second, the rule says, write it. It requires the federal court frame its orders so those who must obey them know what to do, what it means, and what it forbids. Then it would undermine the principles of the rules if every syllable uttered at the hearing was a binding order. You got to put it in writing. Now, the court itself appeared to recognize that its oral statements did not amount to a binding injunction. Let's see. They're kind of calling the judge out. Just before explaining its preference that the government turn around the planes, the court also informed counsel that it would issue a minute order memorializing a TRO so you don't have to race to write it down. Saying, and immediately after the oral statement, The court further stated that it will issue a minute order memorializing all this. So the DOJ was reasonable to wait for the written writing, the order. Those promises accord with the rule that a court will ensure you have explicit notice of what is allowed and not. That rule is doubly important in cases like this, where there are grave national security concerns and complex foreign arrangements. And even at the hearing itself, the court statements were inconsistent and contradictory, Judge. You couldn't even get your story straight. Just a few transcript pages before the above remarks, the court admitted, he said, well, once they're out of the country, I'm not sure what I can do there. Oh, yeah. Acknowledging that its jurisdiction ended at the border. And as noted, the gangbanger ACLU lawyers have asserted that the alleged deportation flights departed 5:26 and 5:45 from a location very close to the outer limits of U.S. airspace. And then they assert that this court made oral statements on which they rely between 6:45 and 6:48. So turn them around at those times. So based on their own assertions, the flights left U.S. airspace. They were in the air for an hour, at least, before you made the oral pronouncement. So even by their own admissions, by their own timelines, those planes were well over the line in the diagram that we drew way up there. It says, under these rules, they agreed the court would clearly lose jurisdiction once they're gone, and they're gone. So under these rules, there was no need to wade into the thicket of parsing contradictory and imprecise verbal exchanges after the fact. That's why we have the rule. Write it down so we don't have to try to interpret what you were spouting off about for 40 minutes. This court should decline their request to transfer oral statements into a binding injunction. The law says write it down. What matters is the written order. And the court posted that 30 minutes after the hearing was over. Didn't take you long to write it. And moreover, even if the court's earlier oral statements were binding, because the rules require an injunction set out its terms, the court's written order would have superseded its earlier oral statements anyways. But either way, whether it was your oral order or your written order, we complied. Now, in all events, the president didn't even need to rely on the proclamation once the flights had left the United States. Once it crossed that line, that's gone. As explained, the government fully complied with the court's injunctions. But even if those orders had purported to prohibit a government from continuing to transfer class members who were already outside of the United States, they didn't get removed. They were already removed, and the transfer was continuing. Even if the orders could only be understood to be enjoining the conduct based on the proclamation. But forget the proclamation. The president has ample authority independent, aside from that, from the proclamation under the Alien Enemies Act, under Article 2, which is the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, to decline to bring foreign terrorists into the country. Sorry, Judge, just not going to do it. What's your power for that? The Constitution. I'm not an insane person who's going to fly terrorists back in, so sorry. Including by returning to the United States foreign terrorists who were previously in the United States. And so for that reason, our decision not to turn them around is in total compliance with the law. The president is entrusted with the vast powers in relation to the outside world. Once they're commander-in-chief, they're commander-in-chief. And these presidential powers that implicate national security and more are very powerful. This court lacks the authority to decide those cases that present those questions. Right? The court can say what the law is within its jurisdiction. If the court can substitute its judgment for the president's judgment, then the court is the president. There are some things that are the president's decisions to make. That's all. The courts cannot review those because the president is empowered to make those decisions. That's how the system works, because we don't want a judge running the country. And that's what they're doing now. They're stepping outside of their jurisdiction to wade into powers that they don't have. And the reasons counseling against courts intervening drop when they're outside the country. The president's ultimate direction of the flights at issue here, especially once they'd left U.S. airspace, implicated military matters, national security, foreign affairs. That's when the president's power is at the apex or the climax. Two consequences follow. First, To the extent that there was any ambiguity about the court's orders or about how the court's oral statements interacted with the subsequent written order, ambiguity should be resolved in favor of a reading that doesn't impose penalties for the writing of a terrible and vague order, because your order was terrible, Judge, and you wrote it like a moron, but also does not purport to interfere with the president's Article 2 powers, because the constitutional power is the greatest of them all, the supreme law in the land. Now, indeed, at the hearing itself, this court expressed strong doubts that its jurisdiction, even Judge, you admitted, you don't have power outside of here, outside once it leaves American soil. And so you cannot require anywhere on any power to force the president to bring terrorists into the United States. You're not going to do that, Judge, right? And even if the court disagrees with that proposition, the executive branch cannot be faulted for not interpreting this order to claim that we need to do that. And so we're almost doing you a favor, Judge. We're looking out for you. The court lacks authority to micromanage how the president decides to deal with terrorists, Judge. Simply, it's another reason to reject your order. And second, whatever else this court's orders may have done, they surely were limited to the use of the proclamation. They didn't reach the president's constitutional powers. Those were independently sufficient to support his removal of these people. Again, the minute order in no way directed the government to do anything outside the United States. You just said don't remove them from. They were removed. But at most, the court's injunctions and oral statements in the context of this litigation concern the invocation of the proclamation and the Alien Enemies Act. In other words, even if one could broadly and improperly construe the court's orders as restricting the government from turning over to alien enemies, right? Like, it's not only removing, it's the handing over to Naib, or as governing other decisions, that was still limited to actions taken by the proclamation. But we don't even need this, right? This is the same thing we've been talking about, the independent power source. For the reasons explained, though, Judge, once the flights were outside the U.S., the president did not need the proclamation or any act to get rid of the terrorists. At that point, the Constitution itself, Article 2, provided the president with the sufficient authority to act. And for that reason, any order that restrained the invocation of the proclamation could not have thereby compelled Trump to return them, foreign terrorists, into the United States. And any government refusal to do that from the president was not a violation of this court's orders. Okay, Judge? So the court should discharge this order to show cause. You wanted an explanation, Boasberg. You got it there, bucko, because the government has complied with the court's orders in this case, obviously. And if the court concludes otherwise, the government respectfully requests the opportunity for further briefing. Signed in a very nice filing by Drew C. Ensign, baby, out of the Washington DOJ office. So, slamming that back to Boasberg. You called me down to the principal's office. Well, all right, here we are. Here's what we say about it. Now, the deportations, the arrests of these gangbangers will continue until criminality improves. Here was Caroline Levitt today talking about it.
I want to commend President Trump and our great Attorney General Pam Bondi, our FBI Director Kash Patel, and Tom Homan. This is what happens when you have competent federal leadership at the top, working with state and local law enforcement on the ground to put bad guys in jail. And this is a directive that has come from President Trump here at the White House to law enforcement agencies across the country. This president has your back, and he is going to support you as you pursue illegal immigrants and you pursue violent criminals in American communities. This individual who they arrested today was a national ringleader of the brutal MS-13 gang, a gang that the previous administration, Joe Biden and his cabinet and his team, allowed to infiltrate in our country. And now President Trump and his team are cleaning up that mess by arresting these individuals. And this took place 30 miles outside of Washington, D.C., where you have politicians and mainstream media journalists who live in this city and who have derailed against the president and his crackdown on illegal immigration and on violent crime. They should be grateful that monsters like this are no longer going to be living in their communities thanks to the great leadership of President Trump and everybody who was on the ground. They were working throughout the night, no sleep for this team, to make the lives of the American people safe.
Getting it done out there. So that's Caroline Leavitt. We also had It's Rubio out there, and Rubio was explaining more about this, saying you're not automatically guaranteed some sort of entry into our country, right? If you're here on a visa, if you're here on an invitation in any way, we have maximum power to get you out of this country.
We revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, let me just send this message out. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa. And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. So it's just that simple. I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors. And say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot. I'm going to your universities to take over a library and harass people. I don't care what movement you're involved in. Why would any country in the world allow people to come and disrupt? Now, we gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away. I encourage every country to do that, by the way, because I think it's crazy to invite students into your country that are coming onto your campus and destabilizing it. We're just not going to have it. So we'll revoke your visa, and once your visa is revoked, you're illegally in the country and you have to leave. Every country in the world has a right to decide who comes in as a visitor and who doesn't. If you invite me into your home because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner, and I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, I bet you're going to kick me out. Well, we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us. We don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country. But you're not going to do it in our country.
Yeah, we don't want it. Go back to your own country and cause a ruckus over there. One final clip from Tom Homan here.
A lot of people have is how long has this person been in the country, and could the Biden administration have taken him down?
Of course it could have. I mean, the Biden administration, they tied ISIS hands. They didn't have our government approach, right? The FBI is doing things they shouldn't have done. But now they got Kash Patel there, you got Pam Bondi, great AG, who's making the FBI do what they're born to do, doing what they're supposed to do, chasing the bad guys, making this country safer. That's why this whole government approach makes so much sense. When we go on these operations, if we find an illegal alien with dope, DEA can prosecute him. We find him with a gun. ATF can prosecute him. The FBI finds a domestic terrorism or terrorism investigation. They can prosecute him. So we can prosecute these people before we deport them. Look, it's a game changer. Under President Trump's leadership, we've arrested more criminal foreign fugitives in this country, more criminal illegal aliens in this country in 2 months than Joe Biden did in an entire year. So game on.
Game on. Tom Homan, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, all announcing new arrests. We've got Boasberg, who's being told it's none of your business what we do once they're out of the country. Take your little order to show cause and dismiss it, all right? Because the executive branch is doing what everybody should want them to do, which is to get bad people out of the country. But for some reason, these ACLU lawyers chomp at the bit to go represent them. So we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. Now, we got one final update on the day, and then we'll hear from you. The Tesla terrorist arrested. Las Vegas police came out. They gave us some insight onto who this person is, and we'll go through this a bit, hit some of the highlights, but you can see this is the person right there who has been arrested, captured, charged with a bunch of various offenses for torching a bunch of Tesla vehicles and for lighting them on fire with Molotovs and shooting at them with weaponry. So we'll go through a little bit of this and see what these charges look like, but it got announced today out of Las Vegas. Here's what it sounded like.
And I'm going to provide some details as we walk through a little bit of a timeline on what occurred and then what we know about the suspect now. So we'll begin with just talking about how the suspect arrived. He arrived east of the location in a vehicle, showed up in a black sedan just parked east of the Tesla Collision Center. You can see on this video clip here, we highlighted the area because it's at the top of your screen. and you'll be able to see the arrival of the vehicle. You'll be able to see that the vehicle comes in,
Can you guys hear this?
driving westbound where you can see the headlights, and then turns around where you can see the taillights, and he reverses back into where he parks. The suspect then proceeds on foot and approaches the corner of the building. As you've seen before and as you've probably heard, and certainly as we're showing today, he attempted to mask his identity by wearing black attire, concealing his face, and wearing gloves. The suspect then began shooting the surveillance cameras with what appeared to be a rifle. You can see an image here of the suspect pointing the rifle towards a camera. At least 2 surveillance cameras were damaged by gunfire. And then upon shooting the cameras, the suspect proceeded to the front doors of the Tesla, and he began spray painting the words "resist" across the doors. I'll let this video play because you'll get a better shot of the suspect. You can see his description as he goes across the clear doors there, committing his act of crime. Once he finishes spray painting the words "resist" on the doors, he then approaches multiple Tesla vehicles that were parked in the front of the center. He proceeded to shoot into each vehicle and used a Molotov cocktail to set the vehicles on fire. We'll play a few video clips here to kind of show you his behavior. You can see him right there in the dark clothing. He casually walks over to his first vehicle that's targeted. He will soon put down his backpack onto the ground. And then he transitions to the firearm. And you'll see him shoot into the vehicle. Once he shoots into the vehicle, he ends up going back from the vehicle to the bag and then back to the car, presumably picking up his item that he used to be able to firebomb the vehicle. We believe that was a Molotov cocktail. And you'll see in a moment here, the vehicle will ignite and ultimately fully engulf, causing severe damage. The suspect then continues on to a second vehicle, and you can see here he's on to the second target. He'll do very similar behavior where he shoots into the vehicle, he goes into the backpack, retrieves an item, and ultimately you'll notice here that he ends up getting the second vehicle on fire as well.
All right, so you can see what happens. Now, we'll fast forward through some of the rest of it, but basically this guy went around, torched a bunch of stuff. They found out who he was. They got his pictures of guns and ammo there, had a full press briefing there. And let's just read through the article to see what actually they found from this guy. Saying a man, police said, set multiple Tesla vehicles on fire using Molotovs has been arrested. Name is Paul Yan Kim, 36, booked into Clark County Detention Center a day earlier, 15 counts, including suspicion of arson, 15 counts, destroying or injuring real property, $5,000 or more, yeah, scheduled to appear in court on Thursday, also facing federal charges and more. Video footage provided to the Metro PD showed that around 2:45 a.m. March 14th, a person dressed in black torched 5 Teslas, and Kim shot a gun at security cameras. Wild. Multiple Teslas, authorities footage showed. He set 3 vehicles on fire using the cocktails and spray painted resist on the scene. And of course, we saw some of that. So Kim had very loose ties to social media groups like the Communist Party USA and the Revolutionary Communist International. Hidden Palestine and Palestine Action, said Assistant Sheriff Dory Corrin. He said that would be part of law enforcement's investigation into the motive. Evans said that there was nothing courageous about the violence and more. So attacking Elon, attacking Doge. Meanwhile, these are what these guys are doing and what they're finding out there, working to save the country.
For you, what's the most astonishing thing you've found out in this process?
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually. For example, like the simple survey that was literally 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000. The government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey. Do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing. It was like insane.
You tech.
Oh, it's like just insane. It's like somebody just, Well, we should just do a survey. For what? I don't know. See what people think about it. They want stuff improved? Well, we don't really care. I mean, what to do with it, but it'll make them feel good, like we do care. So there's going to be a full interview on this coming out later. Here's some more.
Smith, working at HHS, and obviously another element is Medicare and Medicaid, NIH. What are you finding?
Yeah. Well, I'd say there's a couple of things we're really committed to in our work at HHS. Number one, making sure we continue to have the best biomedical research in the world. And number two, making sure, which President Trump has said over and over again, that we 100% protect Medicare and Medicaid. But there's a lot of opportunity. So if I take NIH as an example, today, if you're an NIH researcher and you get a $100 grant at your university, today you get to spend 60 of that and your university spends 40 of that. The policy that we're proposing to make is that you get to spend 85 of that and your university spends 15. So that's more money going directly to the scientists who are discovering new cures. Another example at NIH is today they have 27 different centers. They got created over time by Congress, and they're typically by disease state or body system. There's 700 different IT systems today at NIH.
700 different IT systems.
IT software systems.
They
can't speak to each other.
So they don't talk to one another.
They have 27 different CIOs. And so when you think about making great medical discoveries, you have to connect the data.
Time out. You said 27 different chief information officers?
Correct.
And most of them are non-technical.
So there's a lot there.
There's a lot of opportunity. It will make science better, not worse.
And when I say that our job is tech support, I really mean it.
Yeah.
We have to fix the computers. If the computers can't talk to each other, you can't get research done. If the computers can't stay online, people won't receive their Social Security. So what we have here are a bunch of failing computer systems that are preventing people from receiving their benefits, that are preventing people from preventing research from happening, that are extremely vulnerable to fraud, and we're fixing it.
And does that include AI? Does that include kind of changing the system overall? That's, I guess, what people are afraid of.
Yeah, Brett looks a little freaked out right there. We're not really that afraid of it. We want massive reform. So Elon out there, the Tesla terrorist, at least one of them, there's many of these people now. Some of them are wiping their butts on Teslas because they just are really obsessed with their butts. I don't know. It's strange. Especially a lot of the Democrats now talking about poop and defecating on each other and on America and defecating on Trump and weird people. But we're going to be here continuing to cover the Doge saga. Thanks for joining. Thanks for subscribing and coming back as we do. All right, my friends. Well, it has been a good stream today. And now, if you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. So we talked about the Signalgate case. Signal was, of course, the talk of the week, and American Oversight, Norm Eisen, who was affiliated with Melanie Sloan, who is senior advisor for American Oversight now, sued Hegseth, Tulsi, Ratcliffe, and more, and Trump responded with their opposition, saying that the preservation of records is not needed. They're already preserving the records. Judge Boasberg, who conveniently got assigned this case, ordered a compromise by which records will be preserved. There will be a status update later, and we think it's a trap. So we're not calling this case closed. They're going to say there's a compromise on preserving these records, but we're going to see what they do with them once they get their hands on them. So that case is interesting. We covered that. We also then talked about the order to show cause, which was a fun filing. This was from Trump's DOJ back to Boasberg, and Boasberg was saying they're in trouble, basically, for not turning the airplanes around, literally, filled with terrorists. And they said, we don't need to explain to you why we didn't turn those planes around. Once they cross the border, they're gone. Leave us alone. So that was a nice filing. Great reaction from Rubio, Caroline, and Tom Homan. And then we had a quick update on the Tesla terrorist who got arrested. We now know who he is. A communist. Typical. So that will continue on. The Democrats won't call him an insurrectionist or a terrorist, or they won't call the people who are keying everybody's, Tesla cars insurrectionist or threats to American democracy. The FBI now maybe should look into it. Maybe they will. I think they are. So we'll keep our eye on it, my friends. But now it's time to hear from you. And we want to see what you say about all of this. Thank you for supporting our work here. Thanks for joining us an hour late today. Tomorrow, back on the regular schedule for both streams. And we hope to see you there as we celebrate an amazing Friday. Hey, Donut, clipping for us today. Thank you, Donut, for doing this. Let's see who came in on the house. Hey, what's going on? This GIF is appropriate. Hold on, we're almost there. It's almost a Friday. What's going on? We got this one from Thomas Jacobson. Welcome, Thomas Jacobson. Just became a membo. Teddy just became a membo. Good to see you both. Thank you, Thomas and Teddy. See you both tomorrow on the members only morning stream, 12 noon Eastern time. What's up? Jennifer says Off Label Podcast is so close to 1,000 subs. Heck yeah, baby. All right, my friends, let's go over there, to Off Label Podcast. Just open up an additional browser. Are you guys streaming later tonight? I think you said you're streaming tonight, right? 10 more subs. They're doing great work. Voice of the People, Jennifer. Check it out. Off Label Podcast. Open it up in your browser. Go give them a follow and a listen. And have a great stream. E Flat Towel. What's up, E Flat Towel? Hi from Israel. Hey, 2 months as a membo. First month's the hardest. Gets easier from there, E Flat Towel. Thanks for signing up. Finally, I caught the show live. Shout out to our friends in Israel. E Flat Towel. Appreciate you coming live. What time is it there? Late, probably, right? It's got to be late. What are you guys, like 9 hours? No, probably like what, 12 hours ahead of us? I don't even know. Good to see you. Thanks for saying hi. Always wild to hear from people in different parts of the world. It's wild. What's up, Tortuga Chica? Tortuga Chica in the house. Bringing in a new membo. Another Lisa from Tortuga Chica. Good to see you both. What's up, Mama Pillow? Thank you, Mama Pillow, for becoming a supporter. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membos Only morning stream. And grab the show from this morning. It was fun. Quad Cam. Here's one. That 1800 election article I mentioned earlier this week is far enough along for a draft release. If you're interested to take a look, I'd appreciate your feedback. Whoa, from Quad Cam. All right, here's just a quick link over. It looks like on a Substack. Amazing. Glad you're writing. Says, from tavern brawls to modern battles, the enduring clash of power and liberty. Political tensions ignite in the tavern. Looks like a nice AI image of probably how it was. We have to have a Bill of Rights. No, we don't. Yes, we do. No, we don't. Fun stuff. All right, thank you for that. Quad Cam. I see the link is over on Locals. We'll check it out after the show. What's up, Sharpie Guy? Hey, geez, Rob. The lawfare knows no bounds. What is next, brother? Well, we probably have another, 3 months of this crap. So 3 months of this, and we'll just continue to be irritated and agitated from these Democrat lawyers and judges. And then the Supreme Court will come in, settle this, and then we'll move on to the next phase of the administration, probably. Now, I do think that justice delayed is justice denied, and we're having our time stripped away from us every day, and I'm not happy about it. But we have the ball. Okay, we have the ball for the next 4 years, so that's pretty cool. And I do think the Supreme Court is going to solve a lot of this. They're just taking their sweet time. They have to. It's a structural thing. If they don't, then the next time, the Supreme Court doesn't have the capability of crafting anti-Trump rules, because if they do, it becomes the law for the entire country. And Trump's only in there for 4 years. So then the other party will come in, and if they can't adhere to the constitutional structure, then things really go bad quickly, and the whole system gets perverted. So I think that they have really no choice. It'll get settled. Hang in there. I know it's frustrating. Hang in there. We're going to have losses before we have monstrous wins, but we have to flesh it all out first. Michelle, Signal is more like an in-person conversation. You can't subpoena in-person conversations, just saying. Yeah, I think that's kind of what it was about, right? It was really quick action. It's almost like you were in a Zoom meeting, right? Like they could all just turn their cameras on. Yeah, Will Crump, what's up, Will Crump? Says Signal by design automatically deletes messages. I think it's a feature, right? Like it's highly encrypted, and it's a feature that they can activate. But is it that secure? Is it CIA? For some reason, I thought it was CIA adjacent. And I do know that Tucker said that he was using Signal and they got into it. So I don't know how secure it is exactly. Tony Carver says, what's up, Tony? Thanks for being a member for 1 month. First month's the hardest. Gets easier from there. Hey, Sharpie guy says, hey, we got that one, Sharpie. I know, it's frustrating. Hey, Philip Butler. Can I sue for records of random case assignments? No, I don't think so. The court has a privacy interest in how it operates its court, and they don't want to tell you how the random cases are assigned because it's just like the Google algorithm, right? They're not going to tell you how it works because then people could commandeer it and abuse it. So they don't tell you. But yeah, I think it's very convenient that Boasberg got those 2 cases. Philip Butler says, a motion for frivolous lawsuits? Yeah, I think that a lot of these are frivolous, yeah, that the Democrats are bringing. But I think you're saying, can you sue them? That's an interesting idea. Just start suing the entities who are doing the suing. They're trying to interfere with our rights. Hey, what's up? Charles Fritz. Thank you, Charles, for becoming a membo. We'll see you tomorrow in the membos stream, 12 noon Eastern. What's up? Ray Ronk says the DOJ is allowing them to trap themselves. If Signal is secret, civilians can't see it. But if it isn't secret, then there is no issue. Well, I think what the DOJ is saying ultimately is that they're going to preserve it. And I don't, I think it's like different than classified and national security stuff, right? It's like, I don't have national security secrets on my phone, probably. I don't. But I still don't want you to see everything, like all my text messages with my mom. You know what I'm saying? I still don't want you to see that. Like, that's my private conversations where I force her to come cook us meatballs on Mother's Day. You might think differently of me if you found out about that. So I have to be careful, right? So it's kind of like that. Like, no, there's no classified work plans in there, but it's also just work product. So you don't want people to look at it generally because you're taking care of business, and stuff behind the office is messy. That's why you go into the front room. You don't take you in the back. It's messy back there. Early Riser. Thank you for becoming a member. We appreciate that, Early Riser. We'll see you tomorrow. Not that early, though, for us. Jeffrey Adams. Rob, why didn't Trump attorneys demand that the Atlantic and employees maintain any and all emails and texts also? Yeah, I mean, I guess the question would be, what would that... Like, is there a suspicion of criminality or that there was wrongdoing from them? I think that they're acknowledging that they made the addition of this person. So they need some sort of cause for that, like some sort of criminal cause or criminal conspiracy or something to instigate a demand of the Atlantic to do that. And journalists have a lot of power here with good reason. Like, we want journalists to have a lot of power in this country because our government generally is corrupt and dishonest as a general rule, even when Trump is running it, right? That's just the nature of government. So we'd have to find more, right? Even journalists have whistleblower protections. Like, think about what happened with, Snowden or Julian Assange or any of these folks. But good to see you, Jeffrey Adams. Hey, Run Meat is here. Says, should best effort include subpoena of Goldberg's phone? Yeah, that's interesting. We got to go get it. Got to go raid Goldberg. Knock on his door like they did with the J6ers. Shane Souza, what's up? Says, like, share, subscribe, my friends. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed, we'd appreciate it. That way we don't miss you next time. Thanks for doing it. What's up? Knox is here. Hey, happy Thursday, all. Tim Walz has FAFO'd on his ass-kicking abilities. World War, but WWE legend Kane, now a Tennessee mayor, challenges Tim Walz to a charity wrestling match after the governor's bold claim. That's awesome. You can just challenge governors now? I also challenge Tim Walz to a wrestling match. Hereby declare, I do declare. We can do that now? I'm talking to you, Tim, punk. It's awesome. All right, well, that's cool. Hopefully I don't get arrested for that. FBI is looking. We got the FBI now. We're in charge now. So I would love to. For charity. I love to support charities. Tim, let's do it, man. It'd be great. It would be great. I'm not even like, I wrestled in high school, bro. So like, come on, we could do it. You probably have old man strength too anyway. So it'll be fair. We can live stream it for charity. We'll live stream it here. Oh gosh, a boy can dream. That would be so fun. What's up, Steph D? 13 months as a member. Hey, just saying hi. You're still my favorite. Thank you, Steph D. I appreciate that. 13 months, a year and then some. Really cool of you to be here, Steph D. Thanks for that. And for being here for 13 months. And Knox is here. Knox and Eleanor Schoonover. Oh my goodness. I just saw a big juicy one come in. Oh my goodness, Eleanor. Okay, we'll see it coming up here in a minute. Thank you, Eleanor, for that. Knox is here. Info on HHS job cuts. What's going? Yeah, we played a little clip this morning on the Membo stream on this morning about RFK Jr., and he was saying that he found a bunch of bad stuff in there. So from Ray Flores, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services announced a dramatic restructuring today. Current 82,000 full-timers going down to 62,000. Amazing. 28 divisions down to 15, 10 regional offices down to 5. Yeah, what did he say this morning? He's like, we have this many communications offices. And I was like, oh, why? Why? So they can tell you to take your mask off, then put your mask on, then take it off again. And it's useful, and now it's not useful, and all the things. Yeah. Chubby says, love it. You said don't remove, not to return in your written order. You're not saying the president of the United States of America is supposed to fly designated foreign terrorists into the country in clear violation of the Constitution, are you, Judge? Huh? I'm sure you're not saying that, right, Judge? Yeah, he is. That's exactly what he's saying. He just doesn't want to put it in writing. Thank you, Chubby. Ed, what's up, Ed? Says, since the Court of Appeals denied the government appeal, doesn't the government go up to the Supreme Court? Who replies back to Boasberg? Yeah, well, yeah. So like we're at a couple different stages in a couple different cases. So it kind of depends on what case and at what stage. He's got two cases. So one is a compromise. The other one, I think they asked for a stay in the Court of Appeals, and that was denied. So they would appeal that. But forget the cases. In general, yeah, if the Court of Appeals denied and the losing party appeals it up to the next level, which would be the Supreme Court, based on whatever issue it is, they could appeal the denial of the stay if they wanted to go that route, or they could wait until the appeal was decided on the merits and then appeal that. So a couple different ways. What's up? Knox Bierman is here. Says, I gave my thought in detail regarding the most librarian MS-13 father ever. That guy looks like a dangerous Venezuelan. In detail regarding the most librarian MS-13 father of 5 ever. Did this guy get deported? Well, I don't know. Photos can be deceiving, Knox. That guy might, take you out. You never know. Mark Shaw, what's up? Welcome aboard, Mark. Thanks for being a great for becoming a membo. We'll see you tomorrow in the membo stream. Mr. Pastulio says, I'm usually on your side. Well, that's nice. It's okay if you're not too as well. It's also good. But what if the government grabs a U.S. citizen by mistake? There is no due process. I feel like there needs to be some sort of due process to show that they are not citizens. So, well, yeah, there is a process, right? It's called habeas. Yeah, and that's what Shane is mentioning here. So, yeah, I mean, if you're obviously a citizen, you would expect the government to not detain you under these claims, right? And you'd have judges and lawyers and everybody it'd be hard to get caught up in that. But the petition, there is a claim. It's called habeas. You don't have to file a constitutional lawsuit to try to certify a class action to stop all deportations. There's a habeas petition here, and Congress passed the Alien with Enemies Act. So I understand your point. I guess my response to you would be like, how much due process do you think is afforded? Should be affordable to them? Like a full judiciary hearing? Like where they get to petition and present evidence and all of that? Because that's going to take a lot of time and money for all of those people. And my other question is, how much process did Joe Biden vet them with before they came into the country? Like, was it just an app? Was it just some bureaucrat checking off on boxes? Because if it was just a bureaucrat, or they're illegal, okay, if they're here illegally, then it's like, what process? Why should they get hardly any process? But if they're a citizen, they can file for habeas. I'm a citizen. You can't do this to me. And everything changes, right? Otherwise, you're gone. But right now, I mean, the hearing, if Biden brought them in on an Uber app called CBP1, why can't we Uber them back out of the country? I think that's the same due process. They had the same due process coming in as they get coming out. Seems pretty fair to me. And if they are a citizen, it's just a habeas claim. Hey, what's up? Knox says, I won't replay all my morning show comments, but MS-13 are serious about their tattoos, okay? It shows their rank in the organization. That guy is not a leader. They have to have neck and hand tats in order to get their proper respect. Yeah, from Knox. And so I think talking about that guy. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. I think that if they're wrong, they can file a habeas claim, but they shouldn't be afforded the same due process rights as a citizen, because then what that incentivizes is people to violate our laws in order to access the courts. As long as they can get into the court system, then they're going to be here or be what, for as long as they can possibly be here, contesting their deportation. So, and honestly, I wish that we didn't have this problem, to be truthful with you, but we had an invasion over the last 4 years of our whole country. So we don't have a lot of time to afford illegal invaders all of the flourishes of a broken judicial system. Anyways, so but I get your point. And I appreciate the feedback and the contrary opinions. I do think it is a valid and noble thing to be concerned about due process of people. And I mean that. I'm a defense attorney that's always screaming about all the time, how dare you? It's violating due process. And we don't like it, but I also don't like our country being invaded by gangbanger criminals either. So I'm a little bit of a mind on this one. Rhino Poop, hey, says, just like your brother, my brother used to hover his hoof around his horn. Oh, this is Rhino Poop, and say, I'm not touching you. It's so annoying. Oh, his Rhino Poop's brother's name is Donkey Poop. All right. Says, I love the way, I didn't understand what's happening here for a minute, but I get it now. So he used to do that too. Yeah, I'm not touching you, right? Around your face. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. You're like, you're about to. I'm not touching you. Eric did that too. And then I would move my hand or my head into his hand, and then he would touch me, and then I'd beat the crap out of him. He's great. And, but he's an instigator, so he was fine with it. I love the way the Trump attorneys seem to be trolling Judge B, perhaps trying to make him blow his stack so Daddy SCOTUS will spank him. Judge, while you are circling the Gulf of America waiting for your terrorists to return, we'll be waiting over here in Texas for the habeas filing. In Texas for the habeas filing. I don't know what this is. We try to stay away from nipples on the show. Knox submitted, I think, a nipple photo with a superimposed face, I think, on there. Is that a real face? What's up, Quadcam? Says, those totally radical MAGA Republicans were caught in the act again, this time in Studio Ghibli Town, dude. Yeah, I saw that. Everybody's doing these animated photos, but I don't really get it. I don't know what a Ghibli is. I thought that was the thing on the neck of a turkey. The giblet, something. What's up? Chubby says, it's about time that the businesses start understanding that the government isn't supposed to be signing blank checks for everything, okay? Hopefully with the work of Musk and Doge, the government will stop just blindly accepting overinflated invoices and paying out absurd amounts of taxpayer money to grifters. Next, I hope Doge can do the same with medical and health insurance and education. Well, the Department of Ed and other things are getting reformed quickly, Chubby. We're here for it. What's up, Colleen? I sent a friend and link to your YouTube. Thank you for the education. I lose track of everything I'm doing because you're very entertaining going over those filings. LOL. Thank you, Colleen. Yeah, I mean, I kind of sometimes go into a different dimension. It's like, what's even happening in this filing? It's like, what's going on here? You get pretty into it. I know. They're wild. We're going through wild times. More here. What's up? Bringing in 10 more here. We got Ike's Girls coming in. Edward Bentley. What's up, Sassy Tech? Spine is here. Chaz G. We got Michael Jones. The Shroud. Salty Vet Dad. Chris Harris. And Too Legit to Quit. Gifted membos coming in as new membos, courtesy of More Here. Bringing in more here. Will Crump says, 1/3 of the DC district judges are not born in America, and yet they are the ones getting the Trump cases. Not random assignments by any stretch. Yeah, and it is strange. Like, Boasberg is from America, born here, went to Yale, went to Skull and Bones with Judge Kavanaugh, roomed together with him, so that's fun. But he's not foreign born. But Chutkin was absolutely Jamaica. She has the state's case suing Trump. We had Amir Ali, born in Ontario, ordered $2 billion to go back up. You got Reyes, who I think was born in like Uruguay or something like that. she said that Hegseth doesn't know anything about trans, and she does. First LGBTQ whatever expialidocious judge ever. And why did they get all these cases? Then they brought in Sparkle Schnooznazzle or whatever her name is, and she's also getting Trump cases. So it's just like, give me a break. What's up, Just Don? And by the way, it's not just that they're foreign born; they have no judicial experience at all. Chutkin was working at Boys Schiller before any of this stuff happened. And I think Boys Schiller, were they representing, was it Galen? It was some other, was it E. Jean Carroll? I can't remember, but yeah, Democrat super lawyers. Just Don, what's up, Just Don? 24 months as a membo. Thank you, Just Don. That's 2 full years. Made it to my terrible twos. Thanks for all you do, Rob. Thanks, Just Don, for being here for 24 months. That's some serious time. Tina J. Dallas says, we only have less than 2 years, not 4, okay? If the elections are not protected, that EO is woefully inadequate. That EO is woefully inadequate. Yeah, it's just a start, Tina. I think you're right about that, and we better wise up and ensconce these changes, or else I understand your concern. Rebby Lee, what's up, Rebby Lee? And Groundhog Gaming just became membos. Great to see you both. Thanks for deciding to sign up and support us, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Membo stream. Tony D says, Viva just posted a sneak peek of his interview with Alina Alba. Plus, he met RFK Jr. Man, Viva's over at the White House, schmoozing around. Tina says, the woman testifying today regarding NPR and PBS is a total lefty. 87 of 87 editors are registered Democrats. She is also on the board of Signal. Yeah, that was a fun exchange. She had a hard time out there. They're like, why did you say that white people are the worst thing ever to walk the planet? She's like, I never said that. What are you talking? He's like, well, it's right here. You said it. She's like, oh, yeah. Well, I was reading a book at the time. You're like, oh, so you're kind of nuts. Got it. All right. What's up, Wes Downer? 10 membos coming in. Thank you, Wes, for doing this. Sheldon Williams coming in. We got G. Sharkman. Welcome. XR Kun. We've got that guy's back. Alex Orozco. Sandra Ballinger. Law is T. We got TC, Derek DeVries, Rhonda Thompson, all gifted membos. 5 more from Wes. Grim Hollow. What's up? Andres Leal. We got La Tube Junkie. We got Donald Parrott. Donald, welcome. And Lisa Beck in the house. Gifted membos. Courtesy of Wes Downer in the house. Glad to have you. And thank you, Wes, for bringing in 15 new membos. You're the man. What's up, Rebby Lee? Bringing in 1 new membo, KJack76, gifted 1 from Rebby. Thank you, Rebby, for doing that. Welcome aboard. Sharpie Guy says, Off-Label Podcast is getting after it over there. I encourage you all, says Sharpie Guy, to head over after watching The Watchers. They're trying hard to lift off. I just subscribed, and you should too. Check it out, definitely. Yeah, we love to support our friends out there. We want more people creating great content and getting our voices out there. So I wholeheartedly encourage it. And when I'm not ranting about politics and the law, that's the other thing I'm ranting about. People are like, well, how do you do it? How does YouTube work? I'm like, just do it. Get on YouTube. Trust me, just do it. We need your voice out there, right? If you're on our side at all, we want you to be participating and engaged and active, because that's how we're going to continue to win. Sharpie Guy, thanks for that. What's up, Rhino Poop? Says, Timmy needs your meatballs. Yeah, everybody needs Mama's meatballs. Everybody. Even the vegetarians. Eleanor, we saw this come through. Thank you so much for sending it in. Extremely generous of you. And Eleanor, you're not even a membo or anything. And you've done this a couple times now. So thank you for supporting us a few times and being so generous. If there's something that I can gift to you or invite you into our locals or something, please let me know. I'd love to be able to do that, because you've been very generous here. Everybody's also thanking you on behalf of the show. Cara Zona saying thank you. Shane saying so much love. Thank you, Eleanor, for that. Michael saying amazing. Mark saying good looking out. More here. Thumbs up. Teresa saying wowzer. Teresa, thank you for that. Stephen O, saluting you, Eleanor. Awesomeness. Thanks, and more. So, Eleanor, really, really generous. Thank you so much for that. It's going to good use. We're here. We got big plans we're working on. And you're going to start seeing some more stuff at the Lodge. And we're doing some new editing stuff with our shorts. And it's great. Thank you, Eleanor, for supporting us. We appreciate it. What's up? Deluxe Knight says, hey, happy Thursday, all. Be sure to drink your green smoothie and lots of water. That's true. Great show, Rob. Says, I've been listening during a 1.5 hour traffic jam caused by a wreck on the only bridge to get home from work. Oh, man. Those are the worst. Those traffic, and you just know, you just have to sit and wait. Those are the worst. But you can get a good audiobook in or a good podcast in or a nice live stream in. Thank you, Deluxe Knight. Hope you make it home safe, my man. We are green smoothies, lots of water, stay hydrated. It's starting to warm back up, as we know. Deluxe Knight. Colleen says, Tim Wall says he can beat any MAGA man's booty. Tyrus agreed to it, doing it one-handed, and Mayor Lake offered a handicap too. Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, like, I'm down for that. Like, if he's actually offering, like, I'll do it for charity. Tim Walls, let's go, baby. What's up? Brian Bishop says, dibs on being Rob's wrestling manager versus Tim Walls. That'd be great, man. We need it. I need to be like Rocky. I've been trying to get back into my jiu-jitsu gym here, and I haven't been able to find a good time that kind of matches, and so I'm working on that. But that's the next big project. Get back into jiu-jitsu. Now I've got new motivation if I'm going to have to be fighting Tim Walls here soon. All right, so Eileen. Thank you. Eileen Kyle says, hey, thank you, Rob, for all you do keeping us informed on the judicial system, watching the watchers. We're all doing it, Eileen. Thank you for that. Thanks for saying that over on YouTube. Londo says, it takes 5 to 10 minutes to determine if you are a citizen. We can't have hearings for all 20 million. Not reasonable or possible. Yeah, and the proclamation applies. Like, all 20 million are not Tren de Aragua people. Want to make that distinction clear. But yeah, the whole due process thing, right? If they're getting apt into the country and some bureaucrat is signing a form saying, oh, you're not a gang member, you're going to be whatever, asylee. Oh, you're being attacked from some guy. Oh, you're asylee. Okay, come on in. That in reverse is perfect process. Okay, why should they get more process than the American people got when they came into the country? I'm talking for people who are here legally, okay, with some, asylee status or whatever. The same process in reverse should be perfectly appropriate. But I don't think these people were here legally at all. So, the amount of process they got is plenty. And if they have a problem, they can hire lawyers and file claims of habeas. They have done that already. Sharpie guy, Mr. Pastelio, it's referred to as a driver's license or birth certificate. They work well, sir. Pretty easy. But I understand his point. Like, you don't want me sitting down there. I'm like, hey, amigos, hola, por favor, ayuda, Sharpie guy, what's up? Thank you for that. Hey, K-Jack says the U.S. government will never get rid of all the illegal aliens in my lifetime. No way. Can't get rid of them in the same amount of time in which they were let in. No, unless they self-deported or something like that. But no, they're not going to be rounding up, 20 million people on trains and buses. Rub some dirt on it. Hey, you guys just hit 1,000. Amazing. That's awesome. So shout out to you guys. Says the guys at Off Label just hit 1,000. They're losing their minds. Let's go. They're live right now. That's amazing. Oh, I didn't realize they were live right now. FBI arrests. Awesome. So heck yeah, that's awesome. So thanks for going over there, guys, and for doing that. It's awesome. It's a good game. It's a slow game. It's a slow game. It takes a while. So thanks for supporting them. Rob Maga Patriot says minimum sentence for illegal entry into the country illegally, punishable by 60 years in prison. Minimum, I know, but it's cruel and unusual punishment is what you think it should be. Former says, that pic of the old man holding what looks like a bottle is from a TV commercial. Nobody posts reality. Oh, was he? Was he selling salsa or something? What was in his hand? I can't remember. He's not a Tren de Aragua. Knox says, I'm not so noble. I think they are acting like they found public enemy number 1 when they arrested some random dude and they're calling him Scarface. Oh, is that so? Yeah, I'm a little lost, Knox, because I don't know what that photo is or who that is or what that is from. But like, is that what's happened? So also, we were skeptical about this morning. We covered the Pam Bondi and the Knox and the Kash Patel thing this morning. And like, we didn't have a name. We didn't have charges. She said that they were deporting him back to El Salvador or somewhere. I'm like, well, if he's like a really big, like MS-13, like number 3, why are we not arresting him? Is that who that was? Is that where the picture came from? Is that who they announced today? Okay, so I got to get up to speed on it, Knox. Thank you, though. Sergeant says Studio Ghibli is a company that produces anime shows, and they have very specific style of animation. Apparently, ChatGPT got the ability to upload pictures, and everyone started producing pictures in that style. Yeah, I've seen that part, like the aftermath of it. I just don't really know the origin source. So Studio Ghibli. And it's all over X right now. Everybody's like, look at me. This is me. This is in this new style. It's a cool style. I just don't know anything otherwise about it. So anime. So in Japan. What's up, Colleen? Says, Mayor Kane and sent a friend a link. Really needs to watch. My phone changes better, from Colleen. Good to see you, Colleen. Londo says, can we auto pen their deportations? Yeah, that's a great idea. Best idea I ever heard. No, the president signed all of them via auto pen. How did he sign 10,000? Auto pen. 10,000 a day? Auto pen. Yeah. Boopsie says, I've always wanted to ask you, how did you ever come up with the title Watching the Watchers? And did your show have a different name at first? No, I mean, it's a great question. No, so like Watching the Watchers was almost out of desperation back during COVID. So we were making a lot of content about the law, right? I was practicing law. So we made like 450 videos about Arizona statutes, Arizona law. And then COVID hit and I kind of freaked out. I'm like, oh, well, there goes our business that we worked so hard for. And it was true. Like they were shutting everything down, which means, we're a criminal defense law firm. Like our clients go out to Old Town, go out and get in trouble, go out and do things. Everybody's sitting at home. That doesn't happen, which is kind of it's like, well, if society's closed, all the gears of society stop. It's not like we want people to get DUIs, but we do want people to live their lives, right? And you want society to move and open, and we were part of that. And so that all shifted. But the title, Watching the Watchers, I think it's a phrase. Somebody said it was a phrase, but I don't know really where it came from. Actually. Somebody brought the phrase up to me after the fact, that it's actually a phrase like, que quieres. It's a Latin phrase. There's a Latin phrase for it, but that's not really where it came from. I don't know where it came from. Watching the Watchers. I just thought it had a nice alliteration to it. I was trying to think back at the time we were watching people who were pretending to be in charge of us or caring for us. Like as I'm thinking this, I'm trying to like dig back into my memory bank because this is so long ago. But I was thinking about Governor Ducey from Arizona, who would come out and lecture us and say, we're caring about you. This is for your own good, all this crap. And then like lock us down and then like sign these really horrible orders. And I was a criminal defense attorney and I was watching my fellow criminal defense attorneys, many of them, not all of them, but many of them buckle as well. And this was a national thing too. Okay, like we have to shut the courts down, stop going to court, stop. I'm like, what? Our clients are sitting in custody, like rotting away during COVID. Like you're going to stop representing your clients who are presumed innocent while this is happening? So like who watches the watchers? I was like, well, we have this whole community of people who are supposed to be watching everything and like watching what's going on to take care of us, like the CDC and like, defense attorneys in particular should be absolutely like a government lockdown order. I was on these listservs and stuff of lawyers supporting the lockdowns, defense attorneys supporting the lockdowns. I'm going, eh. And so the defense attorneys are supposed to be watching society. And I'm like, well, who's watching the watchers, right? Who's watching the governors? Who's watching the CDC? Who's watching the cops who claim to have our interest at stake? No one. Nobody's watching them. And so if you go way back, the original thing that we were doing was holding up, mugshots of cops and other bad actors inside the judicial system who were corrupt. Like we were watching them, watching us. So yeah, I don't know if there was something else that keyed off onto that. Like I can say that the big, beautiful spotlight is absolutely inspired by Trump's big, beautiful wall, right? So I kind of repurposed that. But yeah, there's also a phrase, watching the Watchmen. Yeah, and I don't know if that came from something either. honestly, something probably just triggered it, and I just thought, oh, that sounds good. And it has a nice alliteration to it, watching the watchers. And I was trying to make it not about me per se, right? I didn't want it to be centered around me and just Robert Gouveia, like the Robert Gouveia show or something like that. So I was trying to, what is it that we can rally around? And I thought that had a nice alliteration to it. Yeah, thanks for asking. I know. It was a line from the movie The Watchmen. Who watches the Watchers? The Watchmen? I don't think I've seen that one. I'm sure I'm sure I'm not the first to use that phrase. The Watchmen movie. When did that one come out? 2009, The Watchmen. Oh, yeah, I definitely didn't see that. Watchmen, it's like a superhero one. Mixed reviews. Yeah, doesn't look like something I'd watch per se. But anyways, so yeah, great question. Thank you for that, ELZ. So my friends, thank you for sending those in. Thanks for the great questions and the conversation, asking the origin story. I got to think about that, actually. It's fun to go back down memory lane. Where did all this come from? How did we get here? Time flies. All right, let's say who is on X and who is joining us over there before we wrap it up and call it a day. Let's see who's here. You know what I'm thinking about too is Game of Thrones right now. Like I was watching, like I'm thinking about the Watch, like the Night's Watch. Maybe it was inspired from that somehow, because I feel like I was watching that a lot for some reason. The Night's Watch, maybe something like that. What's going on, Barb? Sorry I'm late to the party today. What's up, Barb? But I'm wondering if you've talked about what the so-called Public Records Act is versus what FOIA is. Not really in this context. I mean, whether military communications fall under FOIA or PRA, or if that's excluded from both. Yeah, we didn't get into that nuance today. And I don't think the judge did either. The judge is not even really caring about that issue, just asking whether or not those records will be preserved. And there's a compromise, so didn't really even get into it. But it's a good question. Where do they fall? And what is the obligation to record it? Good questions. What's up, James Pepper? Rob, your Rob AI listed your link to MindMaster, but the link doesn't work. Yeah, don't use AI for links. AI just makes links up. So I'd be careful with that. But we have the links over on Locals, James, if you're a membo. But we're trying something new. I'm working on a new strategy that I think might be better than the mind map, actually. It's working. It's coming together nicely. It's a little bit more accessible. What's up, Fred Pedamonte? The simple fact that Engeron, Mercon, and now Boasberg are allowed to get away with this yet again. Congress, who controls the money, do absolutely nothing. Yeah, I think Congress should defund their printer paper and their toner ink, and then they can't print out crap opinions anymore. Bonnie says, why is the executive branch, or I'm sorry, that's not Bonnie, that's B. Torn. Why is the executive branch the only one that has to retain all its records? Shouldn't the judges as well, and the legislature as well? What's up, Richard? Good times. Here to like and repost. Thank you for that, Richard. Satellite Boy, what's up? Will you tell Pam Bondi to go ahead and join Outnumbered so Trump can put Paxton in his rightful place from Satellite Boy? Jody says, Rob, what are the chances that Judge Nipple got all of the Trump cases with all of the other judges in the district? It's weird. Yeah, Trump-hating judges get a lot of cases. We got some good comments today on X. What's up, Diane? Thank you. Says, appreciate the time you spent with us. So many issues I've noticed I have been more positive since becoming a member of the channel and starting and ending my days with an amazing community. Nailed it. Diane, that is such a great endorsement. Thank you for that. Community, my friends, is the answer to many of our ills, and there's not enough of it in the world. We're trying to build that up here. You might think, oh, it's just a digital community. It translates to the real world. It'll translate to your life in real time pretty much instantly. But then when we do, community events, or if you meet somebody out there, right, in serendipity, you'll see it's much deeper than you think. What's up? Thank you for that, Diane. Angie says, good evening and blessings. Thank you, Angie. Back to you. Satellite Boy says, Trump's intelligence community should start digging through those chats on all their messages about Biden's mental decline. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot out there. No doubt about it. So good to see our friends over on X. Always fun to follow other people on X out there in the wild. So if you're on X, get out there, get connected with some other watchers out there. And of course, have fun. But my friends, we're going to leave it there on the day. It's been a great stream. Thanks for your support. Thanks for the great contributions. Eleanor, thank you again for being so generous and for being here. We want to thank our amazing mods and our meme smiths. Before we wrap it up on the day, shout outs to K Bean, to Donut, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort down for us. Keeping things oh so beautiful and nice and orderly around here. But we're pausing here for the day. We're coming back tomorrow. It's going to be Friday. We're excited about that. We're going to close out the week strong. We're going to have some good filings and other business to attend to here. So membos and everybody, regular schedule tomorrow. So 12 noon for the Membo stream, 6 p.m. Eastern time for the Friday evening stream. And they're going to be just amazing. I can't wait to see you back here to get into it again and to see what the day has in store for us. But that is it for us today. Tomorrow, we will be back here. And in order to do it appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.